What would you, if you could go back in time and tell 16-year-old Joel, who's picked up a guitar and he's got the music bug, what bit of advice would you give your younger self now?
Lay off the beers. Because that'll swallow up a lot of your money. I didn't hand it in, and my teacher was like, you need to give me something, like, because it was to use the program that they had on the computers to record. And I was like, oh, well, I've got stuff on iTunes. So he ended up getting him to buy my album. And then I handed it in by handing him the album that he bought off iTunes, which is hilarious.
That's business genius.
Yeah, win-win. I made like $12 out of it. That's pretty good.
And I said to her, I was like, I think my toxic trait is I think I'd be able to play the violin. Like,
That's my toxic trait.
I know it's difficult, and anyone who's ever played it has said how hard it is to master. I'm not saying I could master it.
This feels like it's the first collection of music in a long time that I'm super proud of and really keen to show people. This is actually, I was just thinking, this is my first, sorry, a bit random, my first ever podcast. I've never done one before.
Is it?
Yeah.
We had that the other week with Zalia.
There we go.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I'm like, this is cool because I listen to so many podcasts. Now I'm like sitting here.
You're on it.
Yeah.
You're in the mix. That's good. I was just kind of, I don't know. It's like Zalia, who we spoke to, is younger. She's only 21.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so but I just assumed you would have been on some. So it's our pleasure.
Yeah.
It's our privilege to have you as a, we'll be the first podcast hostess for you.
Well, I think I want to start with the Mariners.
Yes.
Mariners,
If we can start completely unrelated to anything music-wise.
Well, I had a theory. I had a thought at the game. And I was like, because it's so cold, like people are more like, ugh, and you kind of got more like energy or you want to move. And so I wonder if colder weather makes for better atmosphere at those games because people are more likely to yell and stand up and engage because they're so cold. You're at a stinking hot day, you know, like 35, 30 degrees. You're sitting there, you don't have the energy.
Not as much energy.
Raise your voice.
Fully. Yeah, you'd rather just relax and watch it.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, by contrast, could you just not want to move because you're cuddled up and you're warm, and any standing up and the arms going wide means that you're going to let all of your warmth out?
True.
It's a great
It could go either way.
Joel, do you
either way.
at gigs, have you ever noticed one way or the other? Because we spoke to the Rubens earlier in the year, and they were more doing a state breakdown. So they were like, Queensland can either be wild or they, I'm not going to say suck. They didn't say suck, but they were like less energetic. Victoria, less energetic. New South Wales, they were saying New South Wales were like which I was like, I wouldn't necessarily have expected. But then I wonder if can we apply that to seasonal? So when you play a gig in the summer versus when you play a gig in the winter, do you notice any difference in how the crowd responds?
I think I do. I think with summer gigs, people are like, it's kind of like holiday season, party season. So people are like out to have a good time, and
I was gonna say,
they're kind of like dressed in like nice, comfortable clothes. They're out just like having beers and I don't know, a bit looser. But then in winter, people are kind of like rugged up and they come along, and sometimes gigs can just turn into a bit more of like an intimate thing where people might get a glass of red and sort of enjoy it that way.
And it might vary venue to venue. Too, like if you're playing at the Beery, who I don't think do live music anymore, but if you're at the Beery on your Sunday sessions in the summer, very different to if you got a Sunday afternoon in winter, I would imagine.
100%. Yeah, I think it just, people kind of go into hiding a bit in winter too. So maybe not as much crowd stuff happening unless there's big artists around, but yeah.
But you might find the crowd that come out are actually more likely to engage.
Yeah.
As well, because if you similar to the Mariners fans going out in the wet weather, they're more likely to yell and cheer as opposed to maybe some bandwagoners who string along and just sort of sit there not saying much. I don't know. I don't know if it's comparable or not. But
that makes sense too. I think I think either way, seems to be people that love coming out and having a good time. But I think summer for sure is something I've noticed. People are just more like vibey.
Yeah.
More atmosphere at gigs and stuff.
And how about, so you recently played Mumbo's on the Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
That was not long after Cup of Tea came out. Because Cup of Tea came out and I was like, damn, I need to go to this. And then I can't remember why, but I couldn't go on the Wednesday night. How was that gig? Because that's like I don't know what the temperature would have been that night. if we're still in the seasonal thing. But you're in the autumn, you're just after summer. We're a bit more in autumn than the glum that we're in now.
And like smack bang in the middle of the week too, which is I don't normally play in the middle of the week, but that was an unreal gig. I had good turnout, and it just felt like people were really there to listen. It wasn't so much like, I don't know, people were coming to check it out and listen to the music and listen to the band play, and I think it was it was a bit more of like not intimate, but I think people just paid more direct attention. It was pretty cool.
That's good.
Yeah, I really liked it.
So it wasn't that issue, because we've heard it from artists before where it's like, you know, I'm playing to them, but they're like kind of not necessarily there for me, or they're there for some other reason, but you felt like you had the engagement.
100%, yeah. Everyone was sort of like there were people dancing at the front, but I could see through the crowd people were really like engaged with what was going on, and it was really cool. I just felt like people were actually getting something out of it, and it was fun. So it was good.
Maybe that's the other benefit of playing in summer is you don't have the footy codes in the background to compete with. So
yeah,
got the cricket, but that finishes pretty early for the test matches. So
100%.
Oh, and you know you can tune out of cricket for about 2 hours and come back in. And not really miss much.
You haven't missed much.
Yeah,
100%.
But Mumbo sounds like a very, like, we spoke to Asha and she said that she loves playing at Mumbo's. Everyone. Big Drive love playing there as well. It seems to be a pretty popular venue for artists like yourselves.
Yeah, it's unreal. I think they've started a bit of a scene there in the last year or two, and I think it's what the coast needed, just having that sort of core local live music venue, getting a bunch of local acts on, like people that wouldn't normally play much get to bring all their friends and fam down, and it's always good. It's local, and I think it's a good venue, and they're doing a good thing there. Yeah,
and particularly the midweek, I think I think once we start doing more midweek gigs, especially in our area, like you start to ingrain it in the culture more rather than it being like, oh, this is only something we do on Friday and Saturday nights when you're already out and about. You know what I mean? It's like kind of embedding that live music culture there. Like when you're in Sydney or Melbourne or whatever, you know, you can catch a gig any night of the week somewhere because that's just the accepted culture. Whereas we need to, I mean, we're already taking great steps with live music on the coast, but we need to step more in that direction, I think, and have it just, you know, as something that is so accessible and people get in the routine of going to as well, which I think events like that help with. That's
definitely what's happening there for sure. People just know it's on every week, and it's something to go do. I think they do like cheap wings and cheap beers, and you go down on a Wednesday night. It's a nice little hump day treat. Yeah, it's good.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah,
and you know, you've got Mumbo's, you've also got Lincoln Pin doing some cool stuff for emerging artists down in Woy Woy as well. So it feels like that sort of, there's a few different places now for artists to sort of show what they're made of before they can, you know, move on into some of the bigger venues around locally as well. Has that been your experience too?
100%, yeah. I haven't actually been to the Lincoln Pin yet, but I am going in a couple of weeks to check out a couple of bands there. Some mates, Lemon Joe, are playing there, and I'm keen to check it out. Seems like a good venue.
Yeah, Lincoln Pin. I haven't been there either, but I've heard fantastic things about it.
Yeah.
We'll have to go on a Homebrewed excursion if we 100%. Haven't already by the time this is released.
Yeah.
But Joel, tell us like a little bit about yourself as well. You're not necessarily new to making music and releasing great music, but you're new to the Homebrewed interview podcast slot.
It's my first ever podcast. It's fun.
So give us a bit of background on yourself as an artist, and what's got you to now.
It's been a long journey. I've been doing it for 10 years. I started pretty young. I started when I was 16, about 16, 17, started playing and writing and recording. And I released my first ever album when I was in year 12. I was meant to be doing my HSC and I'd sneak up, instead of doing my exams, I'd sneak up with Jack, who actually owns Sonora. And I'd sneak up and record songs with him. I did 10 songs with him. Just because I had the time and school was mellowed out before the HSC, or during the HSC, sorry. I was just wagging.
but productive wagging. I think there's a difference. Wagging. You were making an album and 100%. It's now obviously set you on this career path. You weren't just going to the shops and smoking cigarettes out, behind the toilets or something.
I was very motivated. I was bitten by the music bug and I just couldn't stop, and I wanted to get all these songs that I'd written recorded and released, so then as soon as I finished school I could go and tour and play some gigs around the country. And I actually had one of my HSC exams for music. I needed to compose an original song, and
How many you want?
Yeah, I didn't hand it in, and my teacher was like, "You need to give me something," like, because it was to use the program that they had on the computers to record, and he said, "You need to record something and hand it in. I need something," and I was like, "Oh, well, I've got stuff on iTunes," so he ended up getting him to buy my album. And then I handed it in by handing him the album that he bought off iTunes, which is hilarious.
That's business genius.
Yeah, win-win. I made like $12 out of it. That's pretty good. But yeah, so recorded that album, and that's kind of what kicked everything off. That album was called Changing Currents, and yeah, I wrote that very young.
That was 2015?
2015.
Yeah. Way back when.
Yeah.
So you said you were bitten by the music bug. What was what was it that sort of got your attention into music? Were you brought up in a musical household, or did you go to a gig for the first time at a young age? What sort of got you into music?
I was definitely brought up in a musical household. My dad plays guitar, and my mum was a violinist, so there was always music going on and piano. We had a piano in the living room. And I think just what bit me with the bug was I could always kind of hear melodies in my head and harmonies when I was listening to songs, but I didn't really know how to do anything about it. I'd always be listening to music and I'd get so into it. It's almost like another world that I'd get into. And I started picking up guitar. My dad taught me a few chords mid to late high school. And I just got really stuck into it from there. And it's like learning anything new. As soon as you get little achievements with it, you just want to keep doing it. And yeah, I just kept pushing with it and trying different guitar tunings. I listened to a lot of Ben Howard at that time, and he played in a lot of open tunings, and just taught me so much about the guitar and sort of just making things up as I go and seeing what sounds good. And yeah, that's kind of what kept me going. I just being progressive with that instrument and learning everything about it.
So for the non-technically gifted, not us, of course, but for those who might be listening, non-technically gifted, describe the difference between open tuning and I guess your standard tuning. I know I understand like tuning up and tuning down, but what is open tuning?
Open tuning's it's kind of it's hard to explain. It's like all the strings are kind of tuned down to. I played in open D, they call it. And it's like all the strings are tuned down into like a whole different tuning. So you don't play your general chords that you'd normally play on a guitar. It's like completely different shapes.
So you do an open strum, and that open strum is a D chord.
Yeah, that open strum is a D chord with nothing on there. So I just strum the guitar and it plays a D.
So do you have to sort of, you said you can't then play a standard E minor or something, so you have to sort of rewire your brain to play the guitar in that way? Yeah, it's almost
like a whole new way of learning guitar.
Wow.
But it was really fun, and I find that it was actually a little bit easier in that open tuning because it just sounds so sweet, so everything you do just kind of sounds good.
Do you still use open tuning in your music today?
Cup of Tea's in open tuning. Yeah, cool. One of my newer releases, So
is that one of those ways where maybe the traditional music purist would be like, oh, you can't do that? You know what I mean? I remember being told about a way that you can learn piano. I can't remember how it was, but it was like, it's not about reading. Like there was just this backdoor way basically where you could learn it and you don't have that foundational kind of music theory or you're not following the structures that a lot of people would follow. Is that as similar with the open tuning? It's a kind of not backdoor, but a different entry to playing.
I think so, for sure. By the book, if you're playing with other musicians that are like classically trained or anything like that, I guess it's definitely different. I think it would work if you knew what chords you were playing. Like 80% of the time, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just playing whatever sounds good. But if you do know exactly what chords you're playing when you're playing them, I think it works. But if you can explain that, but yeah, I think I guess it doesn't matter too much. Yeah.
No, because like you're still and I mean the proof's in the pudding. With you said Cup of Tea is recorded that way. The proof's in the pudding in that it sounds really good, and you obviously know what you're doing. You're constructing a melody and you're constructing a song and sounds, but it's just not via that.
Yeah, not the traditional way.
You couldn't tell someone exactly what you're doing. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I've had a few people asking me what the chords are, and I don't really know how to reply. I'm like, what do I tell them? So I just send them a video. But little private tutorial. Hit me up if you want one.
There you go.
Yeah.
I want to go back to high school as well. Obviously, you were very fresh writing your first album at a very young age. Was there a bit of advice from your music teacher or parents or Jack Negro or someone? Do they give you any advice that sort of stuck with you through your journey so far?
Jack definitely would have. I just can't remember. But I think my mum would always, she was my tough critic. She'd always tell me if I sounded crap, which was good.
That's interesting for
me. Need that.
Because she's got like perfect pitch, so she can just hear.
Does she?
Yeah, she just knows when. Yeah, she knows when something doesn't sound right, so she knows when to let me know. And that definitely helped. Like, it was in a loving way. Coming from your mum, I guess it's the best place to come from. And it helped me get those songs ready to record, because I was only just learning to sing then as well. Like, it was like a whole, I was doing it all at the same time and learning it all. But I think Jack was definitely a huge mentor for me and still is. We still chat all the time. But I think that was one of the first projects he worked on as well. And it was the first project I ever did, so it was pretty special.
How cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you strike me as somebody, if at 17, 18, you're already like wagging school, not to wag school, but to go and make an album.
Yeah.
And then you wanted to release it and tour immediately. So you knew what you wanted to do quite clearly, quite early, because a lot of people at that age group, they might be really good at making music, but they might not have such a defined kind of path laid out, and you were working to get it at such a young age.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I just had that that want to see Australia too. Like, that it's kind of that time in your life where you finish school and you got your license and you just want to go and drive and do road trips. And I just thought, what better way than to pair that with music and play gigs wherever I go. So did a lot of busking and a lot of that sleeping in the car, old Camry wagon, and yeah, it was good times.
Have you attempted to play the violin as well?
I tried. It's really hard.
See, I said this to my fiance. So I can play guitar, and I said to her, we went and saw a string quartet, like tribute band to Taylor Swift up in Newcastle, and I said to her, I was like, I think my toxic trait is I think I'd be able to play the violin. Like,
That's my toxic trait.
I know it's difficult, and anyone who's ever played it has said how hard it is to master. I'm not saying I could master it, but I do reckon I could have, a couple of notes that sound
Mate, this is content. We can make a video.
I wish I had one right now.
Yeah,
I'll hand it to you.
We're at Sonora Studios. Surely
Yeah.
there's a violin in these walls somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. He's probably got it locked away in a cupboard somewhere that we can't access.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I'd said that to her. I was like, I reckon that's my toxic trait. So it is, as a guitarist who's been making music for nearly 10 years, it is difficult to play the violin. Yeah,
I haven't stuck at it very long, but I think it's definitely hard. Credit to anyone that can play it.
Because in my mind, I'm like, there's a fair bit of skills that'll translate from guitar to violin.
Yeah.
So in my head, I think I'd be okay.
I think finding shapes and stuff, or whatever you do, using your hand, that left hand to hold the strings down, definitely works. But just holding the bow and moving that back and forward's really strange.
And right under your chin as well.
Yeah, it's like poking out in front of you, and you kind of it's odd.
And there's a lot in that, isn't it, as well? Like the right angle and holding it, and right angle both of the bow itself, and then how you're positioning it across the strings.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that technique.
Sounds easy.
Yeah,
it's easy.
It's all go.
That's the funniest toxic. That's such a funny toxic trait. That's self-identified.
I possibly have more.
Yeah. No, I like that one.
I'm sure she'd tell you I have plenty more. But I couldn't.
Well, I've identified that mine's just staying in my work clothes too long, like when I should have had a shower by now. That's about as far as I got. It's like 10 p.m. and it's like, why didn't you shower?
You get comfy in them, and then you'd like, now I got to have a shower, and it's a big thing.
Yeah, especially as it gets colder too. Yeah, you're like, I should have changed while it was still warmer.
Yeah. But we are in civilian clothes here at Sonora Studios right now, which is good. So all of us look as though we've showered. So that's a big positive.
Yeah. We're all looking pretty clean.
I was going to say, well, you did, but I was like, that's not really needed to be mentioned.
And you mentioned Cup of Tea before. That's one of your more recent releases. That track struck us immediately when we heard it, and it was rotated on the last couple of shows that we had on the radio when we were on Coast FM.
Awesome.
tell us a little bit about that track, because it's obviously, you know, undeniably very, very raw, and it's full of a lot of emotion. And I don't know, it's also at the same time intimate, and it's captivating. So tell us a little bit about what went into that song, and how you ended up with that as the finished product as well.
Yeah. That track was it was such a natural progression of how it happened. I was on tour last year in June, and I was up going through Byron, and stopped into one of my mates' places, Will. On the way up there, actually, I pulled over and started playing these chords, and I had this melody in my head and started writing Cup of Tea. And within 30 minutes, I pretty much had the whole song done. Sometimes it just happens, it just comes out, and that's it. You get it in your voice memos and it's done. So I took that to my friend Will, and we were just going to demo it at his place, and just jam, and we tracked the guitar and tracked some banjo and a bit of percussion and stuff, and did the vocals, and we kind of looked at each other after it. We did it in a couple of hours, and we're like, I think that's actually like kind of all right. Like, we weren't planning on using it to release or anything. But once we'd done it and Will gave it a mix, and we actually gave it to Jack to mix as well, and gave it a good master, and we were like, okay, yeah, we can release this. So ended up putting it out. But yeah, it wasn't really intended to be a release. It just sort of happened, which was really cool.
Epic.
I always find that funny when I hear artists say it wasn't intended to be released. It's like, I can't fathom sitting around doing a podcast, having a chat, and be like, we won't release that. That was just, you know, for the sake of having a chat. Like, you've gone through the effort of writing a song, recording it, and then doing a rough mix with Will.
Yeah.
Never with the intention for it to be released.
Yeah. No, we were just sort of demoing. Like, I think eventually it would be something that I'd take to a studio and re-record and release, but at that point we weren't trying to fully track anything. It just kind of naturally happened, and we were just happy with how it sounded, and I didn't want to redo it because I think we captured something nice.
It sounds very raw and emotional in your vocals.
Yeah. I think because I just wrote it too, I think I was really feeling that energy, so it was good. Yeah.
And do you find yourself going back to that emotion when you perform it live?
That's what I was going to ask.
There you go. Awesome. You guys are in tune. Sometimes, yeah. I think depends on my mood. If I'm in like a really good mood, I find it hard to tap in. But if the crowd's not paying heaps of attention, I might be a bit like annoyed. And then when I get into the yelling part, I really go for it. And then they're all like looking after it, and I'm like, I got ya.
Yeah, that'll get you.
Yeah. But I sort of live sometimes tap into it.
Yeah, because I wondered that when I first heard it. I was like, man, playing this live, like, do you end up in tears? Like, it's such, you know. And I imagine, well, I don't actually know this at all, but I imagine that the performing of that, like, that's an emotional experience in itself, because you can't sing those notes like half-assed, I guess. Like,
you do have to give it some.
Yeah. So you'd have to mean what you're singing, I guess. I imagine this is from a total non-musician's perspective.
100%. Well, I wrote it for a friend of mine, so it wasn't like a personal experience that I wrote about. It was one of my best mates. His partner just walked out on him. They were engaged, and she walked out on him sort of without much explanation, and he was just super cut up for a long time.
I can imagine.
And I just kind of tapped into that. I just put myself in his shoes for a bit, and because I'm a pretty empathetic person, I feel like I just felt what he was feeling, and then at the time I wrote it, I just put it all into the song, and he's doing really well now. But
that's good.
That's good. And how did he react to that? Like, did he know that was on the cards? You know, that Joel might make a song out of this, and how did he react once he'd heard it and you told him the background?
Yeah, I sent it to him and told him what it was about, and he loved it. He was stoked, and I think he still listens to it all the time. But I think it was nice for him to feel heard and articulated in that way, which is cool. But he was super appreciative and liked it, which was nice as well.
That's fascinating, is that I've never even considered that. It's like that, like first, second hand, like you're providing him with this support in a way by articulating his feelings and putting it into using your skills. It's a very interesting kind of idea. I've never really considered it.
Yeah, it's it definitely comes down to that empathetic sort of feeling, like when you can't help but feel that emotion when someone's going through something tragic like that. You kind of feel what they're feeling, and it just came out. So I think that's why it happened so quick too.
Yeah. Do you find being an empath is helpful for a musician, or do you think it can sometimes be a bit of a curse because you're constantly feeling other people's emotions and you don't know what you're actually feeling?
I think it's good. It helps me understand why other people feel certain ways, and feel like I can always like resolve any conflicts and stuff a lot easier by hearing people and what they have to say and how they feel. But yeah, wait, what was the question again?
It was just whether you think it's a benefit as a musician to be able to be.
Yeah, I think so. I think it helps with more writing and stuff, and helps me tap into certain emotions more often than I normally would. But yeah, I don't think it's so much of a curse.
Are you an emotional person, like just in yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm pretty in touch with how I feel. I've done a lot of internal work over the years, working with life coaches and stuff, and I think I kind of know how to express how I feel in a good way.
And did songwriting help you with that journey as well?
Definitely, yeah. It's like putting a diary out into the world on Spotify. Like my first album were just all different things that were happening in my life at that time, and this all my music up to now is pretty much about something like that's happened directly to me or someone near me. So
cool. I like it. I know it's not just restricted to our generation, and it would have happened before us as well, but it does seem to be like, particularly around people loosely our age, that there's like, I've done a bit of work on myself, or like there's this like, I need to figure this out, or there's this kind of like almost generation wide acceptance that like, I need to probably like work on this and fix this and better myself in that way. Yours is both via music and other means by the sound of it too, but it is it feels like such a healthy kind of dialogue and like baseline that a lot of people are operating from.
For sure, yeah, it definitely is. Sometimes it can be a bit haunting because I can put a song out and then a year later I can be like, why did I share that with everyone? Like, why did I share that deep personal part of my life in music? Like, why did I do that? There's one song I put out and I hate it, but it's like streaming pretty well, and I don't want to take it down. I just want to get rid of it, but I'm like, and it's made my like top 5 on Spotify, and I'm just like, why are you sitting there? Please get out. But
without having to name the song if you don't want to, but what is it about that song that you dislike?
I think I just don't like what was happening in my life at that time. I was going through a pretty heavy breakup, and there's a few swear words in it, which I don't like to do heaps. I did it in Cup of Tea, but it was just called for at that time. But yeah, I just feel like I went a bit overboard with what I put into that song, emotion-wise.
So you're almost looking back a little bit like embarrassed of sorts of how maybe aggressive or angry you were at the circumstance?
100%. But at that time, it felt right.
And that's also, you've had a lot of growth since then, 100%. So it's easy to look back and go, that's not really how I would react now.
Yeah, yeah.
But in a way, it's a good showing of your growth because you say, well, I reacted like that then, but I know I wouldn't do that now. So
exactly.
Maybe that embarrassment's not a bad emotion to be having around it.
No, that's true. It was probably 8 years ago, so it was a long time ago, and I was
plenty of growth.
figuring my life out. I think I was 19. I'm like, I didn't really know anything then. So I was just dealing with it. But yeah.
And someone once said to me about tattoos, it was like, even if you end up regretting the tattoo at the time that you got it, it meant something, and you liked it, and there was something that prompted you and spurred you to go in and get that, so you can look at it and at least remember that.
Yeah, that initial feeling.
Yeah. So hopefully that can apply to your music. And also
100%.
people listen and they go, this is great, or they listen and they're indifferent or whatever, but they never you never listen to a song and go, oh, that's embarrassing. So I hope you don't feel that about it.
Yeah, and when I think about it too, I don't listen to anyone else's music and go, why'd they say that?
Yeah.
I'm genuinely listening to the song. So
it's so easy to get in your own head.
Yeah,
about so much.
For sure. I think because I know what it's about so much that when I listen to it, I cringe, but no one else does. So it's kind of like not as cringy for them, maybe.
Even the person who it's about?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah.
And then, so from Cup of Tea, which was, quite a heavy emotional release as we've touched on, then you've pivoted and we have now Maisie. Tell us about that one, because that's bright, summery, swirly, happy feels. It was just stood in contrast in a wonderful way to the track, to the single that you'd released before it.
That's what I wanted to do. I think because Cup of Tea hits that darker note so much, I really wanted to bring something to the table that was a lot more fun and lighthearted, just to show that, because I haven't actually fully announced this yet, but I am having an album come out on the 26th of July. So that's pretty cool.
Is that the scoop?
It is.
It is a scoop.
Yeah, I haven't told anyone.
Scoop. And
I think I told my Melbourne show, the people there, but it comes out 26th of July. So I was going to announce it soon. But I guess like when the potty drops will probably be when I...
Yeah, well, look, everyone might already know by the time the podcast drops, but right now in the moment, when we're getting our tattoos, we will remember we got the scoop.
It's
100%. Yeah.
And so, because I was looking through your Spotify ahead of this interview, and there's obviously throughout both this year and last, you've got a lot of single. And I was wondering, are they going to form a part of this forthcoming album?
All of those songs will be on the album. It's a 12-track album. I think I've released 6 of the songs. I just wanted to single a few of them because it's hard because I don't want them to get lost in the album. Like some of the ones that I'm a bit more attached to, I wanted to put out and give them their own like shining light, like Cup of Tea. I just wanted it to be its own thing, but it'll also be part of the album when that comes out. But I think with Maisie and stuff and that resonating with Cup of Tea, I just wanted to show that the whole album's going to be kind of up and down the whole time. It's not all just dark, so you can kind of expect a bit of more fun songs and a bit more darker songs too.
And is this the first album since that initial post school leaving?
No. So I had the initial album, then I did another album called Hello, How Are You, which was during COVID, and I didn't know what I was doing, so I just put it out and didn't really push it too hard or tour it or anything. All my shows were getting cancelled anyway, so I just put it out. Then. Yeah, and just got into working a lot at that point. I just wasn't focusing too hard on music because I didn't know what was happening. So, but this feels like it's the first collection of music in a long time that I'm super proud of and really keen to show people. So, yeah. Cool,
because I was curious about the contrast, and we can cycle all 3 of them. Your first one's that kind of teenage, maybe a bit angsty, and also very eager.
Yeah.
Then you've got the COVID album, which is obviously, we all know what that era was like and the collective experience there, but you had your own experience, and now we have this one. So how do you compare those 3 albums now, knowing what you've got to release on July 26th?
The first album was like my L plate, and then the second album was my P plates, and then now I'm on my black. So hopefully this one's a bit more professional. I tried to do it all in the same place. I actually did one of the songs here with a guy called Toby Wells, who's a legend. But the other songs I did in a studio in Byron with my friend Manning, Alan Scott. Yeah, Byron Music up there. So we did 11.
It's in Byron Bay now.
Yeah.
There you go.
We spoke to Manning. Yeah, years ago. Probably like 4 years ago we would have interviewed him. Even longer maybe.
Pretty early on the show, and he was at Copa or Max?
Yeah, he would have been living at Max. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, he's living up there now. He's been there for 2 or 3 years, I think.
So we can't claim him as a Central Coast artist anymore?
No, we could see what his license says. Maybe it's still on his parents, but not sure.
That's the go.
But
we'll just peel off the sticker on the back and be like, see, look, it's coasty.
Yeah, fully. He's killing it though. He's producing up there pretty much full time out of one of the big studios there. So he's doing really well, and he's a pleasure to work with. Such a nice guy. So yeah, makes it easy for me.
So he shot up to Byron, recorded most of the album up there.
Yep. I actually got a writing and recording grant from the Wyong Art House. So
cool.
They were able to fund it, and I had 10 grand in my pocket to go up there and record some songs, which I'm so lucky because I wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise because it's just so expensive. But
that's 10 grand sounds like so much money, and then when you actually do the thing, you're like, where did all that money go so quickly? Yeah,
you're probably looking at like $1,500 per song to finish. So doing 12 songs, I was still like had to pay a bit extra, but Manning looked after me, and just worked really well.
That's great. Yeah, it's those opportunities and grants like that. You're literally looking at the difference between you having an album to release, at least now, like you would have had one down the track, no doubt.
Yeah.
But you're having an album to release now, or 26th of July.
For sure.
Or you're not having an album at all. Yeah. I get so hung up on these things because it's like we need so much more of them because when we were speaking to Lucille too, they mentioned something similar. I can't remember whether it was necessarily to do with an album grant, but it was money. Oh, it was gigs, and it was the cost of actually putting on gigs as well, which can be expensive. And it was just that we need to be offering more support because these things can be prohibitively expensive,
For sure.
and there's also diminishing opportunity, for people to make money in this industry. Well, not diminishing, but it fluctuates as we're seeing at the moment.
For sure.
So it's so good that you were a recipient of that support.
So lucky. Yeah, it definitely wouldn't have happened so soon if I didn't get that. Like cheese is like $10 at Coles or something at the moment. Like think about recording an album. Like it's crazy.
I love those memes of who's the chef who used to do all the Coles ads?
Oh,
I was like, feed your family for $10 and it's just a bag of shredded cheese. It's like, this guy's been awfully quiet.
Yeah, he's totally disappeared.
Yeah, that's not possible anymore.
Nah, not at all. Unless you get those really gross thin sausages. Just live off them.
White bread.
Like coconut cream and curry or something.
Yeah.
Curried sausage.
Canned tuna's pretty cheap.
Yeah. You can get probably 10 cans.
Yeah. But no rice to go with it, so it's...
Yeah, no rice.
No, what are we worried about? It's fine. Everything's reasonably priced.
For sure.
Yeah, but that's fantastic. So 26th July, can we have an album name?
Don't wait.
Don't wait.
Yeah, I tossed up a lot of different names, but it's actually really funny. The title track is a song called Don't Wait, and I wrote that at the same time that I recorded my very first album, but it didn't make the album.
Oh, wow.
So that was, a long time ago. And then I was going through my old Dropbox files at demos I'd made when I was younger, and it stood out to me, and I was like, oh, that's actually all right. And then I just workshopped it, and I was like, yep, it's going on the album. So it's getting its moment.
So 18-year-old Joel was like, nah.
Yeah, 18-year-old Joel was like, nah, but 26-year-old Joel was like, let's go.
Mad.
Yeah. So.
And how much workshopping did you do? Like if we listen to the demo from 2018 to where it is coming up on the album, does it sound almost like a completely different song, or just does. A few minor? Yeah, it's not
very
minor
different.
tweaks.
There's the guitar riff is pretty much the same, but a lot of the vocals are different. And I think I only wrote 30 or 40 seconds of it when I was 18, and now I've written 3 minutes or something now. So it's taken a long twist. It sounds a lot different. Yeah.
Very cool. It's a fusion of your younger and current self.
Yeah.
And I think across that journey.
For sure. And I think that resembles the whole album too. It's kind of showing where I've come from, but then also showing where I want to go. Musically, there's a lot of progressive I'm using more full band sound now rather than just kick drums and tambourines. And I think I'm definitely starting to move more towards that kind of indie rock sound. So I think it'll have a good kind of mix in there.
Yeah, and that was something that I saw on the Longevity Festival lineup. It wasn't Joel Leggett, it was Joel Leggett Band.
Yeah.
So you were going to perform at that festival with a full band. Yep. That festival was now postponed. It was meant to be back in April.
It's October long weekend now.
Yeah. Are you still... Yeah. Do you know anything? Are you still on that bill?
Yep. Yeah. Lineup will stay very much the same.
Yeah, cool.
All the same headliners and stuff. And yeah, I'll have my full band. I think I play 90% of shows now with full band, unless it's asked of me to play solo. But I've got a really good crew with me now, and we've been doing this whole tour together, and the boys are just awesome. So they make it so much more fun, and I think people engage more with a full band too. It's super fun. So give
a shout out. Any other locals who we'd be familiar with, either from other bands or their own work?
Riley McInnes and Jason Cole are both from a band called Lucia. Riley plays bass, Jason plays guitar. They both sing with me too. Bo is from Lemon Joe. He's the drummer. And then Harry Wills isn't in any other bands currently, but he's a good guy.
It's only he's in your band.
Yeah, he's in my band. Yeah. But those boys are killing it with their solo projects too. So they're much more musically talented than I am. So it's really good when we get in the studio. They can really enhance the songs that I'm really just giving them singer-songwriter stuff on acoustic, and then they're just beefing it up, making it so much better. So
yeah, so you're putting them together collaboratively as well as performing.
Well, when I record them, I play everything myself. So like, I guess when I say that, like the live sound, I sort of let the boys do what they would want to do when we're playing live. But in the studio, I definitely have a very strong direction of how I want things to sound. But live stuff, when we're rehearsing and stuff, I'm just like, go for your life. Let's just make these songs sound super fun.
Be inventive, have some fun.
Yeah, and then they kind of take a bit of ownership over the parts they make, and it's a bit more fun for everyone because you're showcasing what you want to do a bit more. So, yeah.
I can imagine it takes the heat off too, especially coming from a singer-songwriter background where you're up there on your own and everyone's looking at you, to be sharing that limelight with, 4 other people next to you would make that feel a bit more.
It's definitely more comfortable. Like, I feel a lot better doing that. Having the guys up there is just like that backbone that I didn't know I needed. So, yeah. In saying that, I do have one solo gig coming up, which is kind of nerve-wracking. I scored a gig with Pete Murray.
Oh, wow.
Drifters Wharf. So that's on the 9th of June. So that's coming up. But I've got to play that solo, so I'll have to put the kick drum boots back on and do the one-man band thing again.
Well, Pete Murray's going to be the... Yeah. He'd be very familiar with that process too.
Yeah, fully. But hopefully I get a chance to chat to him and say good day.
He'd be a good brain to pick.
Definitely.
He's been in the industry for a long time and done different things. So,
and he just writes such good music. I'd love to have a good chat with him.
So outside of Longevity Fest, and Pete Murray, do you have any gigs coming up? I mean, obviously it's hard because his podcast will come out about June-ish. Yeah. But that realm, and if not, where can people find you to keep an eye on those gigs too?
I'm probably just after that tour with the we've got a pretty rough ticket climate at the moment in Australia, and I found it quite hard. Like, I was doing good tickets. Like, I was super happy that people were coming to my shows. I did like 100 on the Sunshine Coast, which I was stoked. And I think just all the travel and everything added up, and I didn't really break even. So I just think that I really want to focus on recording more and writing more, and maybe taking a break from touring for a couple of months. But I'll definitely have shows popping up, and I'm going to do a big album launch party on the Central Coast too. So that will be something that's going to be announced soon. So
great.
Day after the album release, so 27th.
Isn't that like such a almost catch-22 of being an artist, or where you're at, which is you need a tour to get exposure so you can grow your audience, but by touring you can't actually really make any money at this point. So it's almost like, and with the current economic climate, it makes it much harder to justify going on these sorts of tours and putting up the shows.
And I brought the band with me, and like paying for 5 of us to get around the country is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But it's just so worth it. I think I've been really connecting with some of my fans and meeting people from all around Oz. Like, even in Adelaide, I had people that have been listening to my music since that first album, and they knew the words to my songs, and it's just so cool. It makes it so worth it. But you get home and you kind of have the post-tour blues, and you look at your bank and it's just not good. So it's hard to hold down like a proper job too when you're going away so much. So
that's the thing. It's like, this should be, well, from the outside, I'm sure a lot of people think this is your job.
Yeah.
You're touring the country with your music. You're selling shows in capital cities around the nation. So obviously you've got fans everywhere, which is a feat in itself. But it's so, but that's still, you're actually losing money effectively, or barely breaking even, as you said. So it's not your job. It's like, but it should be your job. It's very, it's just.
It takes up like so much time, like all the preparation, and even just doing like releasing songs and getting photos done and chasing up album artworks and doing song bios and all the stuff you got to do in the background takes up so much time. And I definitely don't make much money at all out of it, but I put in like full-time job worth of time pretty much. But it's because I love it. It's like a passion thing too. Like, I can't function without doing it. It's just what I have to do. And I've always felt that way. So I don't feel like I'm really losing in that regard, but it would be nice to build up the bank account a bit more as we go on. But
and knowing what you know now, having been in the industry for a little while, what would you, if you could go back in time and tell 16-year-old Joel, who's picked up a guitar and he's got the music bug, what bit of advice would you give your younger self now?
Lay off the beers, because that'll swallow up a lot of your money. I think I got caught up in that sort of like going out to beery and stuff when I turned 18 as well. So trying to do all that on like a musician's wage was pretty hard, and just hanging out with friends. And I'm so social. I just love doing stuff like going out for breakfast and everything. So I spend a lot of money that way.
How underrated is going out for breakfast?
It's the best. I feel like since I hit 25, it's like I don't go out for beers with mates anymore. We go get coffee. And we get like a bougie, like shook $30 breakfast. Like, we're going for it.
But it's so expensive as well. That's that's the other problem.
Spend like $40 or something. But yeah, no, it's so good. Brekkie's the best.
It is. It made me think I haven't done that for ages. I did it in the reverse. I used to go for brekkie more in my early 20s.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
And now I just don't go for brekkie. It's an internal crisis.
I don't know if I've ever gone out to brekkie with mates, but certainly with the partner, with my fiance, we go out to breakfast more often than I ever did.
Yeah, for sure.
Brekkie's tough. On the ticket sales thing, quickly as well.
Yeah.
So is what you're observing the trend we've seen post COVID, which is last minute purchasing, and therefore you can't reliably kind of say yes or no to a show or know how much you're going to make, or is it 100%. Just a general drop off as well?
I think there's a general drop off, but I think people kind of like, I'm guilty of it too. Like I won't buy tickets till the day before because I just don't think about it and put it off. And I think there's a lot of people buying tickets last minute, and that adds a lot of stress because I'm getting to the day before and I'm looking at the sales going, oh my God, and the venue's freaking out and we're like, what are we doing? And then the day of, all of a sudden you're just selling heaps of tickets and it's fine. Or people walk up and buy their tickets on the door and stuff. But just those couple of months where you do all the promoting and you don't see much movement, it's pretty disheartening at the moment. I think a lot of people are in the same boat.
I've been reading a bit about it, and there's like campaigns, but there's people well within the music industry that are like, look, I don't actually know how we solve this problem because, you don't want to penalize walk-ups by making the door tickets too much more expensive, and you don't want to cheapen the early purchases too much and therefore cheapen the product. So there's people that are just not sure what to do. But I feel like it's like indicative of more broadly this, like, people just have this kind of like fatigue with things now, and it's like the same thing I've noticed, and I'm so guilty of it. Cam, you would know very, very well the forgetting to reply to a message or noting it and clocking it, and then there's so many people that I'll message back and forth, and I'm like, they do the same thing. It kind of makes you feel a bit better, but I feel like it all comes from the same place where people just have this kind of fatigue where there's, I don't know whether it's the information overload because we've got a computer in our pocket, or the state of things, the world at the moment, or a COVID hangover. But I feel like the ticket purchasing thing is another example of that, where people are like, oh yeah, I want to go to that and I will, but I just am going to put that to the side and not think about it. And then when the date finally rolls around, they do it, or they miss out and they go, why did I do that? I've had months to buy this ticket or whatever else.
Fully. And I think, we are fed so much on our phones that like we're able to just swipe past something that we see. And I feel like we do that in our lives too with buying tickets. Like we're just like, swipe past that, I'll do it later. It'll come back to me. Or like, I think we're fed so much that we're just not taking as much importance when we see something initially announced, like a ticket, like an event or something. I think we feel like we've got more time than what we do.
Yeah. How much of it do you think is down to that more social aspect of, just swiping on, moving past it, forgetting to reply, the more broader things within society, and how much of it is cost of living and people, it's harder for people to fork out money to go to a show?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is cost of living too, because everything is so expensive. I think it's just a mix of all of it. COVID, like being exposed to so much on our phones, like when we're scrolling, there's so much there.
It's a horrible cocktail of things that are sort of all blended together.
100%.
And it's really hurting the industry.
It's a disgusting smoothie. It tastes terrible. But yeah, if you're listening to this, like, and this is like you said, like you're guilty of it. I've been guilty of it, but it's like buy early, like when you see it and you want to go buy the ticket, because often, I mean, particularly for emerging artists like yourself, you're not charging an arm and a leg for people to go see you.
Yeah.
And I understand times are tough, and $30 or $40 can mean different things to different people, but often, tickets are anywhere between $20 and $40.
100%. Yeah. And like, depending on, I guess, how your living situation is financially, like it is achievable for a lot of people to get those tickets. So if you feel like you do want to see someone, I just encourage you to jump on it and just get your tickets.
And worst case, if anything's cancelled, automatic refunds are very easily done
100%.
these days.
Yeah.
Because that was obviously a big concern during COVID was I'm going to fork out money on a gig and then it's going to get cancelled and then the refunds, the hassle. But
100%.
We've gotten past that. It's now much easier to get your refunds. You know, that is possibly still a concern for people and sometimes myself. Yeah. As well, particularly, you know, with climate and all, there's so many issues going on in the world. But so many reasons why something might not go ahead or so many reasons why I might not be able to attend the thing. So that's, I think, a lot of what comes down to the last minute.
Not being sure whether to commit kind of thing. Yeah. No, that's so true.
Yeah, it's an industry-wide thing that's still clearly being grappled with. But yeah, if you're listening, buy the tickets early. Yeah, if you can, if you're able to, of course, buy Joel Leggett's tickets.
Yeah,
tickets
if you
early.
see tickets to one of my shows, grab them. And if you can't make it, just message me. I've got a refund button on my ticket app, so I can fix you up.
Simple as that.
Doesn't bother me. Happy to do it.
Do you really?
Yeah. I use Humanitics. They're awesome. I've got an app where I can refund through there.
So if I buy tickets to your gig and then it's the morning of and I'm like, I'm feeling really sick or something's come up, I can't make it.
Yep. Message me.
Yeah, right.
I'll fix you up.
And
there might be like a fee that comes out for Humanitics, but you'll get most of it back.
And is that messaging you through the Humanitics app or is it just send you an Instagram DM and you'll sort it out?
You can get in touch through the Humanitics app. So I'll get an email with your request and I can give you the money back. I've had that happen before. And I'm more than happy to issue refunds because I get it.
And is that down to the artist and the performer?
Yeah.
So if I saw someone else and I said, "Oh, hang on, sorry, I can't go," I message them and they could just go, "Too bad." Like it's not a Humanitics policy; it's for the artist.
You can check a box when you're setting up the event that gives you the ability to do refunds. I can say no refunds as I'm setting up the event if I want, but I always say that I'll refund tickets just because I feel bad for people, empath. But so
we've looped back around.
There's always always that option. So I think if there are no refunds, I think like maybe circumstantial, you might be able to email and just let them know. But yeah, there's always a way that you can sort of figure it out, I think.
That's great, and it's another avenue that like I hadn't really considered before, and a lot of people might not too. So hopefully, knowing that might mean that they're a little bit more inclined to buy the ticket early too.
Yeah,
you got security from the man himself.
Yeah, 100%. Just helps artists feel better for sure. Like, it's very stressful looking at ticket sales the weeks leading up. I don't think there's anything more stressful in my life at the moment than that.
Yeah,
freaks me out. There's a lot on the line.
And it was something that we perhaps didn't really even consider too. Like we know that management and labels and venues look on that quite closely. We didn't know how involved the artists were as well in looking at the numbers for the gigs. It wasn't until end of last year we were chatting to Alaska and she was saying the same things, that she was looking at, she had a gig cancelled or she was supporting a gig that got cancelled. And the reason for it was there weren't enough ticket sales in the early days.
Yeah, I think they need that trajectory kind of thing. Yeah, they need that initial kind of ticket sales to see how the event's going to go.
And look at all the music festivals that have been cancelled too. It's for the exact same reason.
Yeah. A lot of those festivals, like they've got that budget to spend on ads and stuff, and if they're not selling the tickets, then how can they feel comfortable spending that $250,000 or whatever they do on promotion and stuff if they don't even know if it's going to sell? Like, I don't blame them for cancelling.
Yeah. And
very stressful.
A vicious cycle too, because the less you're selling, the more you feel the need to promote it.
100%.
You know, so more money goes into the advertisement, but it might not change the situation.
Yeah, you might end up worse off by the time the festival's done. It's such a shame that all that's happening. It's really, so bleak.
And I guess the cruel irony of it is that the more festivals cancel, the less inclined people will be to buy a festival ticket of fear of it being cancelled.
Yeah, it's sort of just fighting our tails.
Yeah,
constantly. But
refunds are available. Buy the tickets.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
buy tickets if you can. Sternly, firmly, buy the tickets if you can.
Buy the tickets, 100%,
and buy the merch.
And the merch. The merch goes to the artist, so that's good. Merch is very handy if you want to buy a T-shirt.
And I think the simplest thing is just stream the music.
Yeah,
on Spotify, you get a really piss poor cut of that, but at least it's. Yeah. If you're not going to go to the gig, just hit repeat on Joel Leggett and stream his music
sure.
the whole
Set
time.
up an army of bots.
Yeah.
To just play a million times a day.
On repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joel Leggett, thank you so much. Now, for those of you listening to the podcast, who is everybody listening to the podcast, Joel's about to treat us to some really nice acoustic stuff, but you can't hear it. If you want to see it, you have to go to our socials or our website, homebrewed.au, but on our socials, Homebrewed Media, find it there. You're about to see what is going to unfold once we stop chatting here. And we will have those videos up on our socials. So a little bit of incentive for you. But Joel, just quickly, where can people find everything to do with you that goes your music, but also where can they buy merch and things like that if they want to support you?
Yeah. You can find all my music on Spotify just under Joel Leggett, and anything I'm up to is always posted on Instagram. If you want to see stupid stuff that doesn't make sense, go on my TikTok. But if you want important things like gig announcements and singles and albums, follow me on Instagram. And shirts are sold live at my shows. So you got to buy a ticket if you want a shirt.
Hey.
Incentive.
Yeah.
And Leggett as well, G-T.
Yeah. Leggett.
Does that throw people off?
Some people say Leggett, which I just respond to anything. You can call me whatever you want, really. But legit. Good one. Yeah.
That's a better one, I
That's
think.
a better one.
Yeah. All right. Well, Joel, thank you for joining us and chatting to us.
No worries. Thanks for having me, guys.